this is your first day. I suppose that you are already a little bit tired. It won't be very long, not too long, I hope. We will have at the end some time for dialogue, for some comments or questions. And I understand that this should come a little bit later in these 4 days that you are having this training, because it's about implementation and monitoring. And I'm going to share mainly 10 suggestions, 10 tips. But at the very beginning, I have to make an introduction. And I go straight to it. So when you face implementation and monitoring, you have a context. I take for granted that you already have an apostolic plan. That is, you have already identified, elaborated a mission, a vision, and some strategic objectives. You may have even identified also some projects or even some programs or even projects. But you may not have yet identified actions, coordinators, indicators, targets, and calendar. You are also working at the level of the province. As coordinators, sometimes you might be called delegates or even secretaries of the Apostolic Plan. And that means that communities and apostolic works still have their own autonomy. You work for the province, for the communities and the institutions, but they have their own autonomy. So the context when we face this implementation is that you have an apostolic plan, and also it's clear that you work at the level of the province. So on top, you have this, what I have just shared with you, explained to you, the strategic plan, where you have this mission, vision, even some values, and then some strategic objectives. From there, some programs might come out, and from the programs, let's call some projects. That's the planning part. And once you define the projects, you have to say, well, this project asks for some actions, for some coordinators, and then you establish indicators, targets, and a calendar. This is the implementation part. And the last part of it, the indicators and the targets and the calendar, is the monitoring part. I'm not going to go deep into these steps. I'm just mentioning them. The Commission of Ministries is in charge of the planning part of the strategic plan, of defining the strategic plan, even of defining some programs, and sometimes it can also be in charge of establishing which are the projects that should be held. The Commission of Ministries is defined in complementary norms number 260. You can read it in this slide. No? To promote the better choice of ministries and to foresee to some extent future developments, a commission should be set up as an aid to the provincial and under his authority. The task of this commission will be to give advice on an overall review of ministries. This will involve suggesting which ones ought to be kept or dropped, and which others ought to be undertaken for the first time. That is, the planning comes under this Commission of Ministries as it is defined in this complementary norm. It might be called in other ways. I know that depending on the provinces, it might be called in other ways with other names, but this is the main task of the Commission of Ministries, and this is the main task of planning, no? Seeing what has to be kept, what has to be dropped, and what other new things can be undertaken. The strategic plan is very important. It needs to be done with broad participation. It cannot be decided only at the level of the Commission of Ministries. It has to involve Jesuits and lay collaborators, of course. The broader the participation, the more important the plan will be. Usually the strategic plan is about things that are very general and important. Normally it will raise consensus. And this is also this is a key element of it, because it will bring consolation. The strategic plan brings consolation. And over the years, we have to stick to it, because the energy the plan requires, and requires a lot of energy, will remain there in the strategic plan. From time to time, we have to go back to it in order to recover, to be fed by that consolation. As I have already told you, you define the programs, and next step is to define projects. If the plan is good, that is, if it is ambitious, if it is challenging, it will involve a cultural change. And cultural changes are hard to do. They take time, and you have to be aware of it. Then you have the project teams that are in charge of developing the projects. When you have a project, you define some actions, you establish a coordinator, and then you say, well, this is what we want to achieve, that is the target, and we want to measure in this way, that is the indicator, and then you establish a calendar. This is something that can be done this year, and next year we'll do something else. Okay, those are the project teams. This is, as I told you, the implementing part, and this is the monitoring, when you check how are the indicators, what the calendar is all about. Difficulties appear here. I told you the plan brings consolation, but the projects begin to raise difficulties. Why? Because it's there where we take options and establish preferences. Because everything cannot be done. There can be many good things to do, but we cannot do everything because they always require resources. We require funds and personnel, and they are always scarce, especially at the level of the province, much more than at the level of the institutions. Of course, some people will need to take new responsibilities, but we all have a big load of work on our heads, on our shoulders. Who will do it? And this is an answer or a question that will have to be faced by the provincial. And projects, of course, will affect apostolic works mainly, but also somehow communities. And if you touch the territories of other people, well, other people will react. Definitely, some people resist, both actively and passively, and you'll feel it. That doesn't mean that they are bad people, but they have their own mission and they are going to defend it. And sometimes there are some kind of competition and some kind of quarrel in developing mainly the projects. Let me put some examples of programs and projects. One very common program today in the society in any province. Well, we need a program on training in identity and mission for collaborators. Let's say we have several projects in it. The first project can be about offering spiritual exercises for collaborators. Another one can be training on Ignatian leadership. And there we have some different actions, no? And then a third project can be talks and readings on Ignatian spirituality. Okay. Let's say that we have a program on apostolic evaluation of Jesuit institutions, and we say the first project is to identify the key characteristics of Jesuit institutions, and that can take, let's say, a year. The second project would be to develop an instrument of evaluation. The third project can be applying this instrument of all Jesuit institutions. Well, these are examples of things that are being done in some provinces, of course. Father General asked every province to have a program, a plan for promoting vocations. We can also have a program for promoting Ignatian spirituality or a program on care for the common house. So these are only examples of programs and projects. I finish here with the introduction, and then I go into these 10. I've tried to say, I said tips, 10 tips, 10 suggestions, 10 proposals for implementing this phase of implementing and monitoring the plan. The first one happens deep inside. It's very important, but happens deep inside. Come on, thank God for this work. Thank God for this work. Congratulations, because this is a beautiful assignment. To be asked by your provincial to coordinate somehow the discernment, the apostolic discernment and planning of the province is a beautiful assignment. You are going to be at the service of the full mission of the society, not divided at all. You are going to work for this reconciliation with God, with others, and with creation. You are going to be at the service of faith and justice, and you are responding to our full mission. You are going to help others to respond to the 4 UAPs, the 4 ones, as you remember, because probably today you have heard about them. I believe few works can be as attractive and challenging for a Jesuit or for a lay collaborator. It's a challenge, but well, you are in charge somehow of the full mission of a province. So do not forget to thank God every day for this work, because difficulties will arise, and you have to be thankful, grateful from the very beginning. Well, Ignatius tells us always to go together with the Lord, together with Jesus. Keep in contact always with the spiritual motivation. Keep people in contact with it also. In any activity you promote, that is, in any meeting you call, in any training that you have, in any kind of activity, first of all, make people touch, be in contact with the spiritual motivation, because all energy comes from it. If the plan, the strategic plan was well done, and it really was deep enough, there will be some kind of energy there. And you can go there from time to time in order to recover this spiritual motivation. Our response depends on how urgent we feel that motivation. And of course, in any project team, you have to call people that are really motivated with the mission, with the mission that has to be accomplished. If you do not touch that motivation, and you only speak about serious things, let's say like that. If you only speak about serious things, that is, about technical and institutional problems, then it's difficult that you are going to be able to mobilize people, because problems do not mobilize people. What mobilizes people is really this intense inner motivation, the spiritual motivation. So if the apostolic plan, as I told you, raised consolation, go always back to it, because the energy activities need is there. Sometimes it helps to have some texts around the apostolic plan, some biblical texts, some texts from our congregations. You can revisit them from time to time in order to touch this spiritual motivation. But I think this is very important, as I tell you, otherwise you will only face problems and some kind of conflicts, and those do not really mobilize people. You may recognize this picture. This is, I think in English it's called the small circles. I think it's called the small circles. I think in Spanish it's called círculos menores. They were organized during the synod. Well, people look here really very serious, and they feel to be only engaged with their tablets and not much in communication. But in fact, these small circles were supposed to dynamize the spiritual conversation, a kind of discernment, a kind of discernment. And that's the next step. Discernment in common is the way of proceeding. You may remember that in the last congregation, these two concepts were linked together, planning and discernment, completely linked together. And John is in charge at the Curia of this apostolic planning and discernment in common. In the past, in the society, it was understood as a different, as a divergent path, no? One path for discernment, another path for technical planning. But today we understand that planning has to be done through discernment, and any discernment needs some kind of planning in order to reach some fruits. Discernment in common is the way of proceeding. So use it as your main tool for planning, for implementing, and for monitoring. That means, well, you have to prepare issues with all the required information, to call experts, to debate, to discuss, and to talk, of course, as much as you need to clarify any issue. But at the end, allow people to have time to deepen personally in issues, to pray on them, and to express their inner spiritual motions. People should have time during your meetings to pray and to feel inside what the Spirit is telling them to do. Take care not to bore Jesuits. Jesuits sometimes get bored with these dynamics. Sometimes they think we use them in a very superficial way. Take care not to bore them. You know your companions, so speak to them and see how much they can get involved in this kind of spiritual conversation, because it has to be balanced also with the decision-making process. Find a way to take decisions and be agile. One of the most difficult things in discernment in common is something that sometimes happens. That is that we begin to express our emotions and we don't agree. We go once again after collecting some more information, and we do not agree. But we need to find a way to take decisions. Normally, it should be the provincial the one who takes the decision, but it has to be very clear that it's done like that, and people should be comfortable with that way of proceeding. But one of the complexities, one of the difficulties with discernment in common is that we can speak a lot, we can share a lot of our emotions, of our inner feelings, and then stay there. And this is not for staying there. We have to do a way. Lay people and non-Christians can also take part in this way of proceeding. I suppose we will speak about this during these days. If you want to raise the question in the dialogue, well, it's most welcome. Well, this is one sport practiced in my country, and it's very tough because, as you see, these people have to row in the sea in whichever state it is. No, sometimes it will be rough, otherwise it will be calm, but they have to row together. And this togetherness is the most important thing. In this team that you see, there are very strong people. Some others are not as strong as the strongest ones. Of course, they are weaker, but they all have to go together. That's the key element of this sport. They have to row together. And the leader is also very important. He's usually very light. He cannot weigh much because they have to bring him. No, he's the only one not rowing. So this is a question of making a team. Planning is about building an apostolic body. Planning is mainly, I would say, about building an apostolic body. When we plan, and this is what we have in mind usually, we focus on what we do, or on what we have to do. But the most important thing is to build an apostolic body. That is a group of people that engages in a common mission and believes that that mission needs to be accomplished. The apostolic body is the most important thing, because a work is something you do. It begins and it ends. But a group of people is always a promise. They will remain. And you are focused in a process that involves people. And you can be sure, well, at least from experience, lay people will be your allies. Lay people will always be your allies. They will be the ones many times supporting you. Well, as you see in the picture, well, these persons have come to the countryside to work together. The provincial plan is aimed at collaboration. What do we do in a provincial plan? Collaborate. What do we have to do? Collaborate. That's all. A plan, a provincial plan, is aimed at collaboration. And your duty is to make people engage, contribute, and collaborate. There's one temptation that every coordinator, every delegate for planning might have: to create a new body in the province, to create an office, well-resourced office, or to create a new institution that does the work that the province has to do. And you might be at the head, but I think this is a temptation, and it's not good that it happens. The real challenge is to build on the already existing resources, usually institutions, and make them collaborate in a bigger mission. An apostolic plan discovers the potential synergies that need to emerge. And if you manage to do this, something that will surely take time, a new culture of collaboration will grow, and institutions also will begin to accomplish new mission challenges. So you have to create ways in which people, as many as possible, can participate. Well, the way will be very long, and we have to take it into account. But this is a very fruitful way. It will take years. I'm sure about it. Well, about the sea horizons. We need new horizons of collaborating together to a mission. And I would like to share with you the process of mission, something that some of you might already know, might have already listened about it. Well, the process of mission, it has 5 stages. And we can say that all our activities can be placed somewhere in this process. In the past, in history, and today, when we are in a new place with a new community, first of all, the first thing that we begin to do is to accompany people. We accompany people, we get in touch with people, we encounter them, we meet them, we love them. We begin accompanying. Wherever we have arrived, we have begun accompanying. Then, second, we realized that we have some resources, that we have something to give, and we belong to an Ignatian spirituality that is a service spirituality for service. So we begin to serve. But the society never ends in service. We also think about the situation of people, the causes that people, for the people to be like they are. We think, we research, we investigate, we talk with the academy, about what's happening, what's going on. We research, and we are very well known because of this, at least inside the church. We never stop there. We raise our voices. We raise awareness about the situations we are accompanying. We try to change the culture. We try to have some kind of influence, cultural influence here, no, in this raising awareness. And finally, we also try to advocate, to make some kind of transformation in structures. We were called to do so from GC 32nd, and it's part of our mission. And as I tell you, all our activities can be recognized here. Let me go a little bit deeper inside each one of these stages, five stages. The first one is the main spiritual source. You will always remember your meetings, your encounters, your significant encounters with people, with the poor, with those that discovered faith with you. This is the main spiritual source. Whenever you need some energy, go there to your present encounters, with your present meetings with people, or those in the past that really raised all your spiritual energy. Accompaniment responds to the dynamic of incarnation and insertion, which is very well expressed, as you know, in the contemplation of the incarnation of the spiritual exercises. Accompaniment is also the condition for credibility. We are not credible because we are very wise, very intelligent, we are very smart, not because of that, because of where we are, who we accompany. And one of the risks that we face in our diminishing provinces, in those that are diminishing, is that sometimes we lose this contact with the people, and then we are involved in many other issues that may lose us, miss us. No? There, in accompaniment, also you develop horizontal relationships. The service. Well, we are called to serve, as I told you. Service always requires institutions, and sometimes these institutions become really big. When we have big institutions that are renowned in our countries, we risk complacency and pride. And you have to be aware that you are in a position of power. You are a provider of service, while people remain as receivers of service. And this is an asymmetrical relationship. We reflect also on the experience, on what's going on, what's happening here in this accompaniment and service. This research is required for creativity and depth. And as you remember, Father Nicolas used to repeat to us that these two words were really important in our mission. Be creative and be deep, because this is the only new thing that we can provide. Father Kolbenbach used to repeat to all the universities, research, investigate, but always do it from the perspective of the poor and for the poor. Raising awareness is about communicating ideas, images, and feelings. We have to do it at different publics, and usually with the objective, with the aim of creating a new culture. This culture needs to be changed. Finally, transformation, advocacy is about defending the poor mainly, and about establishing contacts with decision makers in order to have some kind of influence on them. If you have a look at the left side of the slide, accompaniment and service is about being at the frontiers, and research, raising awareness, and transformation is about establishing bridges with those that have the power to change things. Okay, I was telling you that all our activities can be placed in this process, and I try to show it. Communities can sometimes accompany, not always they do it, but sometimes they accompany people. Parishes serve and accompany people, really. Universities, they make research and they offer an educational service. They can even try to transform or advocate for some just causes. We have schools also offering services of education. They can also accompany students and families. Faith and culture centers, they try to raise awareness. They can make some kind of research sometimes. We have many publications, most of them focused on raising awareness and sometimes making some research. We have temples, churches that offer sacramental services. We have retreat centers for spiritual exercises. We have social works. We have also social centers. They are focused on research, raising awareness and transformation. And of course, we have very good individual Jesuits. Most of us, we have several of them in our provinces, who are very good at raising awareness. They are very active in social media, and they are well known in our countries. Where is our strength? Mostly in service and in part in raising awareness. But you see that the main contact, the main part, the one that keeps in contact this service with this raising awareness and transformation is research. Research plays a key role in this process. So if we do this, then we can feel that altogether we are responding to very important mission issues, and that each one of us gives its own specificity, and the fruits will be completely different. And if we work together, then we are going to say everything is important. Each one of our institutions can give something important, and we can create really a new apostolic value. So collaboration bears new fruits. Okay, so next slide. You may know these special birds. They come from, well, I think they are called Canadian barnacles. They fly in formation, and there's always one leader, that one person that is leading the formation. And that's, in our case, that's our provincial. And his attitude is going to be very important. So the seventh suggestion, tip, is about your provincial's attitude. And the suggestion is be aware of it. Be aware of your provincial's attitude. This attitude will be somewhere in between two extremes. He may be detached from the plan, not really interested. I have heard from some provinces, well, yes, we elaborated a plan, this was sent to Rome, it came back, it was approved by Father General, then the provincial locked it in one of his drawers, and there is where it remains. He's detached from the plan and not really interested. That's one extreme. The second extreme would be fully committed to it, taking the plan as his governing plan. Well, I remember many years ago speaking to one provincial. He was the provincial of Venezuela at that time, who told me in the presence of my provincial, he told us, well, if the provincial doesn't take the plan as his governing axis, as the way of governing, the main tool for governing, well, it's useless. The plan is useless. Well, the attitude of the provincial will evolve over the years too. Sometimes something that is common is that at the very beginning, the provincial is very, the first year usually feels weak. He needs some suggestions. But over the years, he begins to decide by his own. He takes many more decisions. Probably he knows much better what to do with the province. Well, this attitude that is in between these two extremes will evolve, but his attitude will affect you and will determine the commitment of Jesuits and institutions. Of course, if the provincial is not very interested in the plan, institutions will not respond to it. And you can go there and talk to them. if they are good people, if they are well-educated people, they won't tell you anything. They won't try to discourage you, but they won't follow you. They won't follow you. So it's very important that you accommodate for your expectations to his attitudes. Well, you see a giraffe, a boy, and the brink. Well, I don't know, you may think this is a beautiful picture or a beautiful photograph or not. Okay, but anyhow, we all know this is not true. So we have to be realistic, and this is the eighth tip. You are neither a superior nor a director of an institution. Father General, provincial, superiors, and directors are bosses. And people respond to bosses. You are not. And everybody knows this. You have to know it too. You are not a boss. You are not part of a vertical organigram. You do not have resources, neither people under you nor economic resources. In most cases, you try to involve others' resources. So you are part of the horizontal organigram, and it is good if you know your limits. I come into the ninth one, and I'm finishing. Your attitudes are very important. First one, I just read them. First one, facilitate, qualify your work, let it be a good work. Work more than the rest, work as much as you can, work more than others. The quality is very important. Take care of people and always be kind. Be kind. Open possibilities. Do not be narrow-minded. Remember small institutions. Take special care of them. Those which are in greater need. Do not exclude anybody and call to collaborate. Usually, small institutions, they are ready to collaborate. Sometimes it's much more difficult to collaborate with the big ones. The big elephants find it difficult to collaborate with small initiatives. And any provincial plan, at least at the very beginning, is very small, very weak. Do not reproach, never reproach anybody. Do not blame anybody. You will repent about it. Be patient. Perseverance is key. Ignatius used to say that perseverance is very important. We had to take our time in deciding things, but once we had decided them, to be constant, to be perseverant, to persevere in them. Perseverance is key. This bears fruits at the long term. So we have to look at the long term and appreciate every step, both individually and collectively. Last one. Celebrate and keep hope alive. Take any opportunity to celebrate life and its events. People need it. People really need to do this. Sorry. Do not forget that the group is very important. I already told you. We work mainly for an apostolic body, not for a work. If you create an apostolic body, then many things will happen. Take care of the group. Not everything is tasks and duties. Pray together, give thanks together, imagine new possibilities. Look at the past with gratitude and at the future with hope. Hope that brings commitment and assures you open ways. So this is the last one. I know that some people there know me and have seen me in this position in the past. And I can tell you, well, I haven't been able to follow all these proposals, all these suggestions, all these tips. But anyhow, I think that I really think that they are really, really important, and I share them from my own experience. You have all of them here. Thank God for this work. Be in contact with spiritual motivation. discernment as the way of proceeding, build an apostolic body, work for collaboration, the process of mission, the provincial's attitude, something that we have to be aware of, be realistic, take care of your own attitudes, and celebrate and keep hope alive. I already prepared also the presentation in Spanish, and I hope that you can receive it in the following days in that version, the Spanish version too, because sometimes my English is not very precise. So thank you. I finished sharing my screen.
Patxi, thank you so much.
Voy a hacer la pregunta en español porque lo discutimos con los compañeros. Gracias. Entonces, vemos claramente que el proceso de planificación tiene o conlleva una tensión entre el aspecto o la dimensión espiritual y la dimensión técnica. Y sí, lo que echamos un poco en falta es precisamente ese aspecto técnico que podría permitir precisamente la medida de cómo vamos caminando en el proceso, ¿verdad? Porque en esa línea, en ese proceso que tú describiste en la misión, ¿no es cierto?, que podría parecer lineal, ¿no es cierto?, si es que no incluimos dos elementos adicionales, que son el aprendizaje y la rendición de cuentas, ¿no? Porque la investigación nos determina, nos lleva, digamos, es sustantiva de la identidad ignaciana, pero no necesariamente es el aprendizaje. El aprendizaje es lo que hemos leído, de lo que hemos recorrido, ese camino que hemos desarrollado y qué lecturas nos da de lo que hicimos bien, de lo que no hicimos bien. Y ahí es donde nos volvemos a dar la vuelta en el ciclo, porque nos lleva a decir, bueno, entonces empezamos nuevamente a planificar, o damos un giro de timón, porque es el documento, es nuestra hoja de ruta de gobierno, ¿cierto? Y bueno, y de por medio también la rendición de cuentas, porque la planificación no es para el cuerpo apostólico, sino es para quienes servimos. Entonces, ¿cómo resolver esta tensión entre lo técnico y lo espiritual cuando es necesariamente lo técnico lo que nos puede dar esas medidas de lo que logramos, lo que nos entusiasma porque lo logramos, de que medimos, ¿no es cierto?, hacia dónde nos dirigimos y de dónde venimos? Entonces, un poco por ahí fue la reflexión, y no sé si es que es posible como abordar esos elementos. Gracias.
Thank you, Paula. Patxi, may I ask you later when you respond to let us know what the question is for those of us who are there. That's Jose. Okay, thank you, Jose.
Patxi, muchas gracias por esta presentación que nos has hecho. Me parece muy iluminadora. Soy José Darío de la provincia de Colombia y bueno, me llamaba mucho la atención el tip número 5 de la colaboración y de la cultura de la colaboración, y es que nosotros, un poco desde la experiencia de Colombia, nos preguntábamos si para implementar nuestro plan apostólico tendríamos que crear nuevos proyectos, algo así como proyectos provinciales o desde la curia provincial para implementar el plan apostólico. Pero resulta que haciendo un rastreo nos dimos cuenta que había más de 200 iniciativas en las obras ya existentes y que estaban en relación con las opciones fundamentales de nuestro plan apostólico. Entonces decíamos, agregarle un proyecto más a esto es ponerle más trabajo a la gente y tal vez desaprovechar un poco lo que ya existe. Entonces, lo que tú dices aquí, es decir, construir sobre los recursos ya existentes, ¿verdad? Y invitar a la gente, invitar a las obras a colaborar y a construir una misión común mucho más grande, ¿cierto? Entonces ahí un poco, pues agradecerte un poco eso que nos iluminas aquí. Y hablas de cultura de la colaboración, no aparece tanto como el trabajo en redes, que también, digamos, o del cual se habla bastante. Entonces, como preguntarte un poquito si tú haces allí alguna diferencia entre esto del networking y lo del trabajo de colaboración, y qué perspectivas o qué horizontes ves tú como en ese sentido mucho más eficaces para la implementación. Gracias.
Thank you, Jose. Yes. Sorry, your name?
Hola, mi nombre es Robio Espina, primero de la Federación Fe y Alegría. Primero agradecer por la charla que has dado. Y bueno, mi pregunta tiene que ver con el punto 4 que ponías como tips, en donde decías que planificar es construir cuerpo apostólico. Respecto a esto y compartiendo también la experiencia que tenemos concreta como red, hemos tenido un gran desafío en justo indicar o encontrar las formas para mostrar, para evidenciar que ese cuerpo se fortalece. Y ahí va mi pregunta, porque me llama mucho la atención que hayas colocado como el esfuerzo de seguimiento en los proyectos y no en los programas, que es quizá como el eslabón que más se acerca al plan estratégico. Entonces, quería preguntarte sobre esto, si quizá no sea, o quizá también pueda ser una ruta, pensar el monitoreo desde los programas y no desde los proyectos, porque son como acciones muy transitorias en muchos casos, ¿no? Un proyecto puede durar 6, 7 meses, etcétera, pero el programa se puede mantener más, ¿no? Y a lo que hemos llegado es que quizá allí puede haber una clave para mostrar cómo se fortalece el cuerpo. Hasta ahí.
Thank you. Patxi, over to you.
Thank you. I follow the order of the three questions. The first one, I think your name was Gloria. I think your name was Gloria.
Paula. Paula.
Paula. I didn't understand it well. Thank you. So you raised a very important question. I didn't focus on the technical part of the planning and implementation. Sometimes here, well, John has also asked me to do something on that. And I know that there is one presentation that maybe we can share with you about the cycle of the mission. No? It's not only a process that we develop over the years, but there's always one cycle. And as you say, in that cycle, there is the planning, the implementation, and at the end, you have to do an evaluation that involves a learning process. What did we learn over the years by implementing this plan? And on the second, and also this accountability. Accountability is very important. Accountability, as you say, is very important. It's not well introduced in the culture of the society, as far as I understand. And sometimes it has not been raised as an important element of the spiritual of the Ignatian spirituality. But I believe this is very important. We receive a mission, and at the end we have to say what did we do with this mission, no? So yes, this I fully agree. At the end, you have to systematize whatever you learned. You have to raise those questions that have been lessons for you over the years, and you have to also to see what you finally accomplished. And well, what I've tried to do is, as I tell you, is not to focus on the technical part, but mainly on the spiritual part of it. Second question, second answer. Yes, you raise a very important question also for me. The collaboration culture is key at the end. And as you say, we might have, you say in Colombia, no? 200 initiatives responding, let's say, to the fourth UAP, no? This care for the common house. But we have to ask the people, what if we did all these things together? What if we try to make things converge? Maybe not the 200 of them, but let's say 25 of them. Cannot we accomplish a much bigger and important mission if we work together, even if it is quite difficult to do so? And I believe that this is the main task of the planning at the provincial level. Because you can say, no, I'm going to create a new institution to do something which will be better than the rest 200 initiatives. That's usually not true. But that's a temptation. There is always one temptation. And if you get money from abroad, you are lost, because you are going to work for that, and you will create an institution. But you will lose probably most of the possibilities of working for the province. The culture of collaboration is very difficult to create. It takes many years, because we are too individualistic, both at the personal and at the institutional level. But if you manage to change it just a little bit, many new things will happen. And you also say, the networking and collaboration, I understand that the two of them are the same. Because collaboration in a province is usually involving institutions, communities, Jesuits, while creating a network, an apostolic network, a network of collaboration. So I would say that it's the same. Today, the way of collaborating inside the society is with networks, on networks. And last one, Robbie Espina, no? Robbie, I also agree with you. The indicators. So you can. The indicators is not a very easy task, because you need as few as possible. The fewer, the better. But as many as they are needed, as they are required. You cannot follow 50 indicators. I suppose it's very difficult to follow 50 indicators. You have to define as few as possible. But on the other hand, you need a system of indicators that reflect more or less in a good way what you are doing. And you would need, the easiest ones are the indicators for the projects, very easy. Well, we said that we were going to have 3 trainings, and there were going to be 75 people all together in these 3. Well, did you do that? Those are part of the indicators. There would be 1/3 of them will be lay people. Okay, did you manage to do so? So the indicators attached to the projects are easy to define, but as you say, much more meaningful are those attached to programs, more difficult to define, and the last ones, because you probably need them, some indicators for the strategic objectives. Few of them, but some of them. And that's the system that you develop. In my experience, this is something easy to do at the level of an institution and not that easy to do at the level of a province. And you can get lost if you want to have a system from the very beginning. Take your time, because sometimes a program is only about defining something. Sometimes the province says, well, we need to do something in this area. Yes, we need to do something. What can we do? We don't know. And the program is to explore an issue, to explore a theme, and then begin knowing what you can do, no? Well, so yes, you can have indicators attached to the projects, to the programs, and to the strategic objectives of the plan, a system that is very meaningful, but at the level of a province, that is usually difficult. This is what I can share with you.
Thank you, Patxi. We probably have time for another 2 more questions. So, questions for Patxi? Yes,
Diane.
Tyree.
So thank you for the Patxi for your presentation. It was very useful. I would like to ask from a more practical framework. Actually, we have had the province apostolic plan and we have started implementing and all. However, when it comes to the implementation in the institutions, there is an overlapping of the already going on activities in the institutions and the province apostolic plan activities that are expected from us and from the society side. So there is an overlapping of activities there. And also there is some kind of confusion when it comes to monitoring and reporting. Sometimes we tend to list out only the activities happening in the institutions as part of the province apostolic preferences. We try to tick in the boxes as Father General earlier advised us not to do. There is a temptation to do that as well. So would you suggest a kind of method with which we can actually form a new model to monitor and report, especially you did not mention much about monitoring and reporting. I would be happy to hear something about that. Thank you.
Thank you. One more question. Yes, please.
Muchas gracias, Karen Farfán, de la provincia del Perú. Justamente en la provincia hemos implementado un sistema de evaluación que busca justamente en la diversidad de obras, que son casi 50, poder medir la implicancia con las líneas de acción, con las prioridades y líneas de acción del plan apostólico, y es una evaluación única a través de cómo se implementa desde los proyectos o acciones en concreto. Hace poco la Comisión de Ministerios, que asistió en la planificación y en la aprobación de este plan, reconocíamos que esta evaluación era muy limitante, ¿no? Que necesitábamos medir procesos y sobre todo también la apropiación de este plan, que si bien fue participativo en las generalidades de sus prioridades, siempre invita no solamente a orientar, sino también a seguir reflexionando sobre lo que, por ejemplo, la apropiación de una ecología integral es una llamada para una obra pastoral, educativa o social. Hemos pensado, por ejemplo, en procesos como Focus Group cada cierto tiempo, en las plataformas apostólicas o incluso poder ver cómo se están apropiando a través de el mayor conocimiento de cada una de estas líneas de acción. ¿Qué nos sugeriría usted para poder no solamente restringirnos a indicadores fríos, sino también poder escuchar el sentir, porque es un plan apostólico de 8 años y estamos recién ahora en el primer año?
Thank you. Patxi?
Thank you. Difficult questions. Difficult questions. The first one, about the first one, of course, there is some kind of overlapping. So something that cannot, so the planning, the provincial plan cannot be on top of everything that we do. It has to change something inside the institutions. That's why they resist. Otherwise, they wouldn't. But they resist because they know that some change is coming. And they are not the ones exactly deciding everything. And sometimes they can feel it as a threat. So, yes, it's important to know that whatever that we do and that they do inside the institutions is something that they incorporate to the normal work that they are doing. And that they are not anymore an individual institution, but they are an institution together with many other institutions in the province working together in a network. And that's a very big change of mindset, no? About reporting. Well, reporting is important. Reporting is important, but it all depends where you are in your plan. If it is beginning, reporting is not that important. Where you begin doing things, small things, you try to support people, you animate them. That's the most important thing. And then at the end, sometimes you say, well, what did we do? Okay. Over the years, you have to say, what have we done together? And reporting is about that togetherness. And I would focus on that togetherness. What has been new here? What has changed really? What are we doing together? How have we become an apostolic body? And then reporting should focus on that. Reporting is very tricky because sometimes you say, well, we need more information. Of course, we always need more information, but collecting information is always tiring and requires energy. You cannot focus on that, only from time to time. And this links. I link this to the second question, Karen. Indicators are usually, well, we try to have some, let's say, how do you say this? Number. You try to have numbers, no? You try to have numbers. But that's part of the results. Most of our results, they are, we need to reach them through some kind of conversation. I told you at the very beginning that discernment should go in the planning, in the implementation, and in the monitoring. That means that perhaps at the end of a year, at the end of a couple of years, you have to gather a big number of people of the province coming from the different institutions, from communities, Jesuits, lay people, have some groups in between them, among them, organize them, and they share their inner feelings about the planning. That's already a report, and that's not about numbers. But of course, if one day you gather, let's say, 70 people, and most of them, they say, well, this is our way. This is consoling us. We are making a change. That raises a very strong energy. And that's much more important than any kind of result, much more important. I remember once in my province, we did this with 40 people. It took us just, let's say, half an hour. Everybody had to say a sentence about what was going on. And when it finished, we all had an idea, a very clear idea of what was happening. And there were no indicators, but we had already shared with them some kind of results that were there. No? But that feeling of the apostolic body is very important, and it makes a big change.